Guy, just quickly, look at my finger.
Did you drop weight on it, guy?
Negative, guy. I went motorbike riding on Saturday, and
yeah. Oh fuck.
Didn't happen motorbike riding though. I went to fucking skim a rock, dog, and I stacked it. Ate shit.
Oh, like you threw it and you fell when you threw the rock?
Yeah.
Nice guy.
It's a big rock.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Looks like it hurts to you.
Yeah, it's stiff as fuck, but yeah, it's all good. Anyway, I digress. Let's get this going. Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and welcome back, Idiot Squared viewers. This week, we're going to dive into the concept of composition or compositionality, why it's important, why it can be a very useful mental model to understand. What does it sort of mean? What examples of it can we find? And why is it relevant to health and life and the universe? So we're going to jump straight in.
So I have heard of compositions from my little experience in After Effects. So when you create a new project in After Effects, Adobe After Effects, you create a new composition, right? So a composition is basically a framework for a movie from like my understanding. Each composition has its own timeline. A typical composition includes multiple layers representing components such as a video and audio footage items, animated text and vector graphics, still images, and lights. So that's from the Adobe website. So that's like my understanding of what a composition is. So it's basically, like a timeline that you input images and videos and audio files, vectors and graphics and shit to begin to edit some sort of anything that you want to edit, right? Be it like some, how like you see those animated titles at the beginning of movies and shit, like the Avengers comes up, like the flames and all the effects. So stuff like that is created in After Effects, and you use a composition to do that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yes, I think we got there. Good. Okay. Yes. So I think most people will be familiar with like a composer in an orchestra, right? That you have your different sections of instruments. You got your brass instruments, your string instruments, your wood instruments, your wind instruments, etc. And the composer is the singular person who brings all of those different sections or types of sounds together to create the symphony that is the orchestra, right? Or the music that they produce. So composition is essentially like how you can bring together many different things and bring them together in a way to create something, right? So a recipe is a composition of different foods, right? So when you're making a meal or a recipe, you're composing different foods, different cooking techniques together to create a dish, right? And if you change one of those things, it changes the output of the recipe, if that makes sense. We have this concept in mathematics, linguistics, in all sorts of things. It applies across such a broad range of different things. The reason I wanted to talk about it today, composing, is that oftentimes when you see content on the internet or you talk to people, a lot of the time it gets put down to one thing, right? People think it's about doing this one thing, right? Like do this one thing to improve your health, do this one thing to improve your wealth, or do this one thing to become successful, or insert thing, and you can do one thing to get there. And I just think it's so one-dimensional, it's so myopic, and it's also inaccurate, right? Very rarely, if ever, is it just about doing one thing. What it's more often than not actually the case is it's about doing many different things and composing them together in certain ways, right? So the initial example is, okay, let's use your example just quickly. Let's use with your compositions in After Effects, right? It's very rarely about getting this one perfect shot. right? It's actually about composing many different things together to create a beautiful video, right? Now, each of the shots matter, but it's how you compose all of those shots together that really brings the richness and the effect out of it, okay? So we can use another example, which can be like health, right? So people will say, do this one thing to improve your health, right? Like, eat this one food and you'll become healthier, or this food is a healthy food, or this is a health food, right? And unless you're doing every other thing that you can be to build your health, it's never going to be just that one thing, right? It's about composing many different things together to create that. So an example, again, with health, it's not just about nutrition, right? Nutrition is a key aspect or a key axiom or a key part of it, but it's also about sleep. Do you get good sleep quality? Do you get enough sleep duration, right? It's also about breathing, right? Like, what is your aerobic capacity? How you can control your state via breathing. If you do longer exhales, you'll become more relaxed. If you do shorter exhales and faster inhales, you'll start to become more heightened, more aroused. It's also about mental hygiene, right? So if you perceive things negatively continuously, that's going to be very hard to be healthy because you're continuously sort of poisoning yourself through the way that you interpret things, right? Negative interpretations typically, there is some relationship between perceiving something negatively and producing a cascade of toxins in your body, so to speak. And there is an association between perceiving things positively and in a good light and producing things that are like tonics in your body, right? And then on top of that, so you have light and darkness. Being healthy is also about getting a good contrast between light and dark. So making sure you get adequate levels of light exposure, ideally from the sun, in the morning and in the early parts of the day. And then as you progress into the evening, making sure you get away from that light and try and seek darkness to signal to the body and the circadian rhythm that it's time to go to bed, it's time to sleep. So health is more about composing all of those things together over time than it is about just doing any one of those things. And I wanted to highlight that because I do think it is a common mistake that we make. I've made this mistake in my past, and I still continue to do it in certain areas, right? Like, no one's perfect. But we think that we need to just do this one thing when life is actually made up of doing a variety of different things over time, right? We don't just sleep. We're not always awake. We're not always cleaning ourselves. We're not always eating. We're not always exercising. We're not always doing one thing. We're actually composing many different things together to create our life, if that makes sense. Like, we don't always just work. We don't always just play, et cetera, et cetera. So does it kind of make sense where I'm sort of framing this from?
Oh, got it. Absolutely. Got it. Absolutely.
Welcome to Good Meals. I'm Reuben. I'm the founder and developer of Good Meals, and I'm here to introduce you to a smarter way to approach your diet. Forget the one-size-fits-all meal plans. Good Meals is about precision, personalization, and simplicity. It's not just a meal planner, it's a tool that adapts to you. Start by telling us about yourself. Your goals are unique, so should be your meal plan. Good Meals utilizes advanced AI to tailor every meal to your specific nutritional needs. Here's where it gets interesting. Our extensive database isn't just a collection of recipes, it's a culinary exploration. Whether you have specific dietary preferences or just what's available in your fridge, Good Meals finds the perfect recipe for you. And it's not just about variety. We focus on the nutritional value, ensuring that every bite takes you closer to your health goals. Join Good Meals today at goodmeals.health. It's not just about eating better, it's about revolutionizing the way you think about food. Because at Good Meals, every meal is a step towards a healthier, happier you.
The only thing that I think has a benefit to these influencers that do those sort of one-hit, wonder video type things where they say, do this one thing. If you want to lose weight, you'll get shredded with this only one move or this one nutritional hack or whatever. Most of the time it's bullshit, but I think the benefit of those videos is that it lowers the barrier of entry, because if you start trying to get someone to start living a healthy lifestyle, and you start explaining all these facets of what it is to live that way, your sleep, your meditation, nutrition, exercise, you're like, yo, like, fuck, yo, like, relax, guy. Like, there's no way I want to take on all those responsibilities, right? But if one of those obnoxious videos sort of gets them, in, like, oh, all I got to do is just this one thing, or I'll give it a shot. Now they've already gotten their toe wet, right? And maybe from there, they can start progressing and evolving and learning and adapting more into what it is actually to be living a healthy lifestyle. So I think, like, it's a good point of entry, because the barrier of entry is quite high if you present everything all at once. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I think these things are so popular, is because it's incredibly convenient and easy to digest. Oh, it's just one thing. Like, that's how we typically tend to sort of function as humans. Like, we have this consistent idea of ourselves. Like, we have one thread of history that makes us, right? And so then it's sort of easy to get stuck in, like, this one-dimensional aspect, if that makes sense. Like, it's easy if it's just one thing. Like you just said, it lowers the barrier massively. So it piques our interest. Like, when we hear someone say it's just one thing, it gets people's attention, because it's like, oh yeah, sweet. Like, just one thing, that's all I got to do. Hell yeah, I can do just one thing, as opposed to actually realizing that it's actually a composition of many different things. It seems to be harder for people to sort of wrap their heads around that as a concept, which is why I think this concept of compositionality is actually an incredibly useful mental model to have in one's mind. Like, if you can adopt this frame or this model of understanding the power of compositionality and how things come together to create things that are much greater than the sum of the parts, then we can start to it becomes easier to model that stuff, right? It becomes easier for you to understand that health isn't just about doing this one thing. It's actually about doing this variety of different things and composing them together over time. That's going to be the bigger driver for health than just doing this one thing. That kind of makes sense.
It sort of makes sense. So, like, when you say adopt this different mindset, this composition type of mindset, how do you suppose we do that?
Well, the first thing is to just understand the concept of compositionality, right? Like, what does it mean as a general concept, right? So what you explained before, how it's when someone says, oh, just do this one thing, it lowers the barrier for people, right? Because I think it's easy for us sort of inherently as humans. It seems to be the case for a good percentage of people, that it's easy to understand, like, just that one thing, right? Like, or to hold just one thing in your mind, as opposed to being able to hold many different things in your mind at once, and then, like, see and playing out the interaction of those things. I think that's a harder thing. But we can take advantage of being able, like, humans broadly being able to do the one thing quite well. So if you can hold this one thing, this compositionality in your mind, it's kind of like a hack to give you access to actually being able to run something that's multi-threaded, right? Or multi-computation, being able to run not just one singular thing, but many different things. But if you can hold compositionality, it's just one concept, right? And if you can have that in your mental model, that one concept allows you to run things that are multi-computational or multi-threaded. Does that kind of make sense?
Like that, yeah. So to have the meta concept in your mind, that things in life are to apply a sort of composition type of perspective to all aspects of life, and health being one of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm just having a little bit of a difficult time of how we can, or one could adopt that type of perspective if they're lacking that perspective currently. How do you think one could just begin to understand, to look at health as I don't know if I'm saying the word correctly, as a composition type of concept, compositionality, maybe?
Yeah. How can one do that?
Yeah, how can one, because if to get someone from just looking at it as a very singular, linear thing, to get them from that step to understanding, oh, it's actually a composition. It's a whole slew of things. When you combine, that's when you can optimize your health really. So I get that having the composition type of mindset is one thing. It's like a meta thing, right? But how do we get them from thinking, oh, okay, all I got to do is, I don't know, consume turmeric every day to sleeping
lower your
well.
inflammation.
Yeah. So how do we get them from like that mindset to understanding through like health through the lens of a composition type of mindset?
Well, okay. So my short answer is I think that it's actually just about sharing the concepts more and more. So we have like the meme space, right? All the different ideas that are out in the space of human interactions and human idea space or whatever it is. And so by pushing more of that, like I don't think it's something that's taught very often. Like again, we've got this example in music where people are taught about composition, right? And how to compose things. But it's not typically, like there isn't typically an analogy used for other subjects when there clearly can be, right? Like this applies to so many different things. Like I just mentioned, a recipe is about compositionality. Like that's really what a recipe is. It teaches you how to compose different foods together to create a dish. And if you choose to compose them differently, you'll end up with a different dish. And so we can see that this meta concept of compositionality broadly applies to so many different things, because what it's actually doing is talking about multi-computation. It's talking about how different things, different threads of things, different dimensions of things can come together to create things that are greater than the sum of the parts. And so, how do we get this out there? Well, we push more information and knowledge about compositionality into the meme space, right? And one way to do that is to analogize it to other things so that people can hold this concept. But like, you can't know something unless you've been exposed to it in some sense. And I think that exposure, the shortest answer is exposure to these ideas, making them easily understandable for people is a key thing. So if you're going to have one thing, the one thing you want to have is the understanding of compositionality, right? This one thing will change your health. This one thing will make you wealthy. This one thing will get you all other things, okay? So we've just we've meted it. We just took it to the next level, and now we can sell everybody. So that's how we can get people to understand it. This one concept is the thing that will make you whatever you want to be in life. If you can understand this one thing, it will change everything. But I do think that that's true to some degree about compositionality, right? So I have a little bit of a dialogue. So I went back and forth with Claude this morning, using Claude 3 Opus, which is the new one. It's actually quite good. Has a better way with words than ChatGPT 4. But anyway, I had a decent dialogue back and forth with it to try and like help it to get to articulate these things a little bit clearer for us. So it's also very flattering to you if you write stuff to it. It's good at complimenting. I feel like that's going to be a valuable thing it's going to get lots of people hooked into it. Like they're going to become best friends with AIs. But
is it available everywhere now, Claude?
You can use Claude, the free version, which is, I believe, Haiku and Sonnet.
Okay.
Are the two lower, like the littler models. It'd be analogous to GPT 3.5 versus GPT 4, right? But yes, they're available free. I think you have to use a VPN if you're located in some places, like they don't let you sign up. But there's a free version that you can pay, and you get access to Opus, which is the big one. It's like the GPT 4, and it's pretty good. So I went through that, and I wanted to sort of explore this idea across a couple of different dimensions about compositionality. So if it's not too boring, I'll just read a little bit of what I prompted it with, and then what it sort of gave me.
I'll let you know,
said, let's explore this notion of compositionality. I often hear people saying things like, in order to be healthy, you need to eat healthy food, or in order to be successful, you need to do this one thing. There are other examples in this vein, but I think it gets the idea. So what I want to explore is how this is generally wrong, largely because it isn't often about doing one thing. It is often about composing many different things together over time that results in the outcomes mentioned above. For example, being healthy isn't just about eating healthy, whatever that means, but about composing many different things together over time, like breathing, hydrating, eating, fasting, various essential macro and micronutrients and minerals, movement, light exposure, vitamin D synthesis, nitric oxide production, as well as other things. Darkness in the evening before bed, mental hygiene, improving the way you see and thinking about things, your environment, and other factors. Health is about composing those things together over time and rarely just about doing one thing. In fact, I would hypothesize that the only time it is about doing one thing is if you are already doing all the other things. And so I said, so let's explore the notion of compositionality as it applies to life, existence, health, wealth, and other things, and develop a deeper understanding of it. So then Claude comes back and says, the concept of compositionality that you've brought up is incredibly insightful and applies to many aspects of life. Compositionality refers to the idea that complex systems or outcomes are often the result of multiple components or factors coming together in a specific way, rather than being determined by a single element. As you rightly pointed out, health is a prime example of compositionality. Achieving and maintaining good health is not just about eating nutritious food, but rather a combination of various factors such as proper hydration, regular exercise, adequate sleep, stress management, and a balanced lifestyle. Each of these components plays a critical role, and neglecting any of them can have a negative impact on overall health. So then it goes on to say, the same principles apply to other areas of life, such as success and wealth. Success is rarely the result of a single action or decision, but rather a composition of many factors, including hard work, perseverance, learning from failures, adaptability, and seizing opportunities. Similarly, building wealth is a gradual process that involves earning, saving, investing, and managing money wisely over time. Understanding compositionality can lead to a paradigm shift in the way we approach various aspects of life. Instead of focusing on a single, oversimplified solution, we can recognize the importance of taking a holistic view and addressing multiple factors simultaneously. This understanding can help us make more informed decisions, set realistic expectations, and develop comprehensive strategies to achieve our goals. Moreover, the concept of compositionality highlights the significance of consistency and long-term commitment. Just as good health is the result of consistent, healthy habits, over time, success and wealth are often the outcomes of persistent effort and dedication. It's not about taking a single massive action, but rather about making small, consistent progress in the right direction. So it goes, in conclusion, compositionality is a powerful concept that can transform the way we think about and approach various aspects of life. By recognizing that complex outcomes are the result of multiple factors coming together, we can develop more effective strategies, make better decisions, and ultimately lead more fulfilling lives. Embracing compositionality allows us to appreciate the interconnectedness of different elements and to take a more comprehensive and balanced approach to personal growth and well-being. So that was pretty good. But it also hits at why I think compositionality isn't as common a mental model as it could be, and possibly as it should be, is that we as humans, we do just like the simple, right? Like we want to just, in our mind, we want to think it's just one thing because it's very easy for us to understand. And in hindsight, and from our, we're computationally bounded observers, right? From our point of view, it's more computationally efficient to just go, oh, it's this one thing, as opposed to holding in our mind the confluence of other factors that's many other things. That takes up more space and is more computationally intensive to have in our minds. So I think that's why we tend to like these simplistic, it's this one thing kind of approach. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I was even thinking about myself and how I didn't get into this living a healthy lifestyle with that mindset of having this composition type mindset, because my entry point was just going to the gym. I wanted to just work out because I remember I went rock climbing with a friend and I scaled one wall and I was fucking spent. And the second wall, I couldn't even get halfway up. And my buddy, he did 3-4 walls easy peasy. And I was like, yo, what the fuck's going on? And he told me, it's because I work out. I was like, damn, I got to start working out. So the very next day I started working out and I never stopped.
Yeah.
Right. And then since I started working out, I started just reading shit, how to work out better, what exercises to do, sets, reps. And then I'm like, yo, what else is important? Oh, nutrition's important. Well, what do I got to eat? And then I started getting into nutrition and I'm like, okay, well, recovery is really important. How can I improve my recovery? And then suddenly you start looking at how you can just optimize all of these different things that essentially surrounded my enjoyment for just training and working out, until I finally gained a lot of new skills and then created sort of this composition type mindset where I understand that all these things are interlinked. Like Claude was saying, everything's connected, right? The sleep is connected with the nutrition is connected with the working out, and then the meditations. It's all of it. It's like one, the breathing, everything it just becomes sort of intertwined, and it's just healthy, just health, just living a healthy lifestyle. So I'm assuming that your journey was sort of similar, right? Didn't you also start by going to the gym first, and then you later acquired all these other skills?
Yeah. So mine didn't start in the gym. Mine started with nutrition, only because I had Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, which is like a digestive system disease, right? So I had problems with that, right? So I struggled nutritionally first. Like that was the impetus for me to start to understand nutrition, because I wasn't having good outcomes. I had problems in nutrition space, so to speak. And so because of that, I had to become more conscious, more aware of what it was that I was eating, because different foods would have different effects. And I didn't like those effects. I didn't want to be limited by that. I didn't want to feel like that for the rest of my life. So then I started to get into nutrition. Then from there, I was also, involved in athletics and playing sports and the rest of it. And so that was the sort of natural progression for me, was I want to get better at these sports. Well, how do you do that? Training, get bigger, faster, stronger. You can do all these different things, and then got into the training. So yeah, similar, but just slightly different entry point. But you hit on a really important thing, which is like yours didn't start with all these things. It started with just one thing. And that's because at any moment in time, if we freeze time, in a sense, our consciousness can only be doing one thing, right? You can't be having, in some sense, multiple thoughts simultaneously, right? You can, because we have this one identity, you are Polska, I am Reuben, right? We can only really have one thought at a time. And so if you go from one time to the next time, then you can switch from what you were thinking at this time step to the next time step. You can think another thing and then another thing. But at any one time, you're only thinking of one thing. Does that kind of make sense? And I think that's where this sort of comes down to. And then realizing that, over time, what it is it's about, who you are is, in a sense, or who you think you are is, in a sense, the space of different thoughts that you have over a certain period of time. And it's the composition of those different things in time or over time that gives rise to who you think you are, or your sort of mental landscape, if that makes sense. But I think that partially explains why we default to this. We like to have a one thing, because at any one moment, that's all we can really hold in our mind is one kind of thing. And then the ability to go between one thing and another thing is how we can model more than one thing, but that only exists over time. It can't exist in a single instance of time. That can't sort of exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I'm just a little bit confused then, because prior to that, I thought the discussion was sort of going in the direction of adopting this meta mindset of what health is, like the composition of health with all these different facets, and just thinking about that one thing, that meta thing, that health, we can concentrate on that one thing. But then there's also like a lot of other things that fall underneath that umbrella term of health.
Yeah.
Do you see where my confusion is?
Yeah. So, but I think, I funnily enough think that I actually just had a good fucking analogy. I think we might have just solved this. Okay. So there's many different ways to think about what a concept is. But one way we can think about what a concept is that it's kind of like a wrapper. And this is going to sound weird. I might need to get up like a drawing board real quick.
Do it. Do it.
Okay, hold up.
Do you have a drawing board over there, guy?
Yeah, I do. It's going to be sketchy.
Oh, it's all right, guy. It'll be good. Or are you just going to bring it up on the computer and draw something on paint?
Yeah, that's what I got. All right. Okay, let's do this.
I was watching Nelk. Like I'm a fan of Nelk. I'll just say, I'll admit it. I like Kyle Forgard. I think he's pretty dope. And
it's just because he's Canadian, guy. Let's be real.
Yeah. It's a large reason. So, Canadian guys are dope though. Like Canadian men are fucking sick. They just need to grow a set of nuts a little bit more, get some balls. But that's another discussion though. But anyways, and they've been on this health kick lately, right? And his thing was he wants to just feel better when he's traveling because they travel a lot. And his thing was, dude, I'm always tired and I just want to like feel better with everything that we're doing all the time. So that was his entry point, was him just having more energy to do all the work that he does. And they always say this is what they always say. Yeah, we're dialed in, boys, dialed in. So they've been dialed in, and he looks significantly more healthy. If you just watch like his progression, he's lost a lot of fat, gained a lot of muscle tone. His skin looks better. He just looks better, speaks better.
Yeah.
Better mood. And he's been saying that his productivity and his quality of life has improved significantly. And it's not just the working out that he's been doing, but he's been dialed in with the nutrition, with the sleep, cold plunges, meditation, everything that we've been talking about in the spot. He's been doing with his team, and you can see all of them are doing better. So it's really cool. And then when you see his face when he talks about it, it's like you can like relate to it. You're like, damn, like yeah, like that is what it feels like to be healthy. Yeah. When health becomes a priority, to one of your priorities, it's just there's nothing else like it. Really,
it unlocks so much shit. It's so good.
Yeah. All right.
I'm glad that they're doing that. That's good. Yeah. So, okay, I have some very rudimentary drawings here. Okay, so let's see if I can explain this. So, concepts, right? Incredibly powerful things. In Wolfram's model, these are like collections of rules. In rulal space, form concepts. Concepts are like particles in rulal space, which is like, we have atoms in the physical space. They're collections of different processes. Concepts are like particles, but in rulal space. Anyway, so why is this sort of meta concept about compositionality so important, right? So think about what makes us unique as people and observers is our perception that there is one thread of time, right? Like you have a singular identity, like an identity over time, and it's like, so you have one thread through time, and that's your thread, so to speak, right? But really what's actually happening there is you are the sum total of many different processes. So you're a multi-computational process, right? So there's lots and lots of things going on simultaneously across space that give rise to you, so to speak. But then you just have one thread of time. You're not seeing every single thing that each one of those threads is seeing. You're sort of the sum total of all of those threads. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So from there, just like that, we have this, health. We can call this health here, right? I'll just put this up. Oh, damn! My paint just crashed. Hold up, I got to bring it back up.
Fuck. Paint guy, yo, what's going on with paint? Shouldn't be crashing like that. The fuck, paint?
I don't know if they've upgraded it in a while. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna do this. So here we go. Okay. So there's one. Sorry, this is okay. So that the black one is like, let's just call let's just call the black one. It's it's nutrition, right? It's food.
Are you sharing something?
Oh, it's not sharing. Okay, hold on. Here we go. We're back.
Okay. Sweet.
So these are all just different like aspects of something, right? So then here.
Could we say like one could be training, other one could be sleep, nutrition,
precisely,
meditation. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. So these are all different things. So these are all different threads, right? And I'm going to do this nice green color. So one of these, this can be exercise, this can be nutrition, this can be hydration, this can be sleep, and this can be mental hygiene, right? So these are all sort of different things that you have to do at different stages over time to contribute to health, right? This overarching thing here, we call this, these are sort of like the key ingredients for health, right? Now, this concept of compositionality, right, allows us to take advantage of sort of like the single threadedness of like our consciousness and sort of hack it, right? So if we wrap this, we go like this, and we sort of wrap this around, right?
Nice,
that's actually pretty pop with that, dude. That was really good on.
Yeah, that was excellent.
And what we're going to do here is bring this together. Actually, 1 second. Sorry, I'm just going to have to use my rubber here.
Your rubber?
Because we need to eraser.
Is that? Do you guys call it rubber in Australia?
I
rubber.
have. I am kind of dyslexic, so maybe I'm wrong. But yeah.
We call condoms rubbers in Canada.
Okay.
You call them rubbers? Condoms in Australia?
I think we just call them condoms.
Okay.
Anyway, so check this out, right? So I'm going to bring this in. Here. So this will all become clear in a second.
Yeah, I got you. I think I see where you're going with this. The sperms are all coming together, uniting as one super sperm. This is how you get like a quintuplet baby over here. Babies.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. All right, anyways.
Me neither, guy.
Filling up space, guy. Filling up space.
But thanks for filling up the space. Okay, so now we've got this, right?
Yeah.
So let's just get back to this little thing here. So this right here is the concept of compositionality. Just pretend that says compositionality, okay?
Conspiracy?
Compositionality, okay?
All right. Gotcha.
So this is the concept of compositionality. What it does is it takes the many different threads, and if you understand this concept of compositionality, it sort of combines them into a single thread. So that way you can take, the 5 different things that are up the top here, and then by having this concept of compositionality, it helps you to combine them all together to understand the effects of that. So what I was trying to get at here is essentially, because processes in the universe are inherently multi-threaded or multi-computational, and we know that like from health, from wealth, from all the different things. It's not just about one thing. It's about all these different things coming together, a confluence of factors, right? Instead of then trying to have to hold all of those different separate parts in your mind, if you have this concept of compositionality, it allows you to sort of wrangle or encapsulate or wrap up different multi-threads and sort of combine them together into one thread, which allows us then to sort of process that. Like if you can have the concept of compositionality in some sense, it allows you to understand inherently multi-threaded things in a sort of single-threaded way. Yeah, kind of. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I guess jobs are like that as well, right? You have to sort of look at your job depending on what job. Well, no, I think I would probably say all jobs. All jobs are multifaceted in some sense. So you would have to sort of look at your job in the same way. And along the way, you would gain, or even before that job, is when you're trying to gain certain amount of skills that you acquire, be that through, studying at university or college or some sort of skills trade or, experience working part-time jobs, whatever it might be. During your journey of ultimately getting your job or your career, you're gaining these skills until eventually you can sort of attack your job in this composition type of mindset where you have all these responsibilities working all at once to essentially do your job effectively. I think I kind of fucked that up, but I think I know you know what I mean, guy.
Yeah, so in some sense, you do have to get good at one thing at a time, but don't get caught thinking that just that singular one thing is going to be the key to every other thing. It's about combining multiple things that you get good at together to create the outcomes that you want. So maybe what you were trying to say with your job example is like, yeah, at a job, you might not have all the skills, but you might have a skill. So you can start there, and then over time you can develop other skills in different areas. And then what it means to get really good at your job is to be able to compose all of those different skills together to achieve the outcomes that your job requires you to achieve.
So I guess if we looked at it from the perspective of this composition type perspective, we're looking at it from a top bottom sort of way. If we have in mind what career we would like to have in the future, right? If we're young and we're just we're sort of in high school and we're trying to think of like what we're wanting to be when we're older, we could sort of make that goal. Okay, I want to be an engineer. So there I have my meta concept, which is being an engineer. And then you start to research, well, what necessary things do I have to do in order to achieve that meta goal of becoming an engineer? Is that kind of attempting to have the perspective of this composition type of mindset?
Yeah, possibly. I think I was trying to hit at a slightly different thing, which is more like if you can get the meta concept to understand that no one thing is just one thing, right? Everything that you think is one thing is actually made up of many different things and the composition of many different things. If you can start to understand that concept broadly, that becomes a bit of a superpower. So to use your example of the engineer, like say the engineer is your meta goal, it's this one thing, but then realize that being a good engineer is actually made up of many different skills, many different mental models, many different understandings, and composing those all together is what will make you a great engineer or make you an engineer in general. Then yes, then your example works really quite well. But the main thing I was saying is if we sort of understand that it is an inherently human thing to think about singular things or be able to do one thing at a time, right? People say like multitasking. I used to think I was a pretty good multitasker, but I realized no, what I'm actually doing is just stealing my capacity from one thing and spreading myself a bit thinly. It's better to do just this, a single thing at a time, so to speak. But then over time, you can go from a state of doing this thing to a state of doing this thing to a state of doing another thing. And if you look at it over time, you've composed those three things together. But at any one moment, you were just doing one thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can sort of take advantage of that. If we take our time to do one thing, which is understand this concept of compositionality, that then becomes like you can have you can have that as a mental model, and then it makes it easier to wrangle things that are inherently complex or inherently multi-threaded, and it allows you to sort of wrap them up in a way that's very easy to understand.
I have a question about one of the sperms you drew, because I thought it was interesting what you called it. Mental hygiene. You said here one of the facets is mental hygiene. That's very interesting. Mental hygiene.
Yeah.
I never heard that before. That's like a great way. Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to sort of it's really beautiful wording for that concept, mental hygiene, because it's just implying that it's something that you have to upkeep.
Oh yeah,
you just
big
don't
time.
let it. Yeah, I love that. I don't know. I've never even heard that concept before, like worded that way, right? Like I get it that everything in life you have to work at and upkeep in some way, but I just never heard that mental hygiene. I love that. That makes it sound like it just the implication is beautiful in that wording.
Yeah, and in two words, you can gain so much, right? So the composition of those two words creates a richness that if you picked another word like mental health or whatever, it doesn't have that same effect. It doesn't have that same visual or visceral experience associated with it. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm shocked you haven't heard about it. I thought you would have been up to date on that lingo just because it's such a good way to sort of understand it. But yeah, mental hygiene, just for anyone that's not necessarily sure what we're really talking about here, is it's like the cleanliness of your mind. Like do you sort of, allow yourself or do you entertain certain things mentally? Like how do you perceive things? How do you allow yourself to perceive different situations? Do you get caught? An example of bad mental hygiene would be focusing on the negative in things instead of, having a balance between the negative and the positive, or allowing yourself to perceive things in certain ways that don't result in, the outcomes that you want or the states that you want to be in, so to speak. But yeah, it's an incredibly important concept.
Yeah, another concept I heard years ago was, when someone posed the question, "What's your relationship like with food?" or that you have to sort of improve your relationship with food. That concept also sort of impacted me. Like, yo, wait, like a relationship with food? That's beautiful. Yeah, because it literally is that. Whether you have a healthy or an unhealthy relationship with food, and I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
The same way that mental hygiene is. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a good way to frame lots of things. So your relationship with your environment, your relationship with the people around you, your relationship with food, your relationship to challenging work, your relationship to difficulty, your relationship to like many different things. It's a good way to think about a lot of different stuff. So tying it back, let's really double down on this compositionality thing and get a little bit more of an understanding in it, and then we can wrap it all up, right? So I had, like I said, I had a big dialogue with Claude, and I wanted to sort of distill a bit more in this frame about compositionality so that we can have some, actionable kind of things. So if anything piques your interest, interrupt me. If you want to discuss anything, interrupt me. Otherwise, I'll just keep reading through it. It's about, 200 words or something like that. So not a heap, but it's pretty good. So I told Claude, like it give me that last response, and I was like, yeah, that you just kind of agreed with me. You didn't really expand on much. Let's really get to the crux of this compositionality, right? Like let's actually provide some actionable stuff. So it says, certainly let's dive deeper into the concept of compositionality and explore how it can be applied as a mental model in various domains. So compositionality in its essence is the principle that the meaning or functionality of a complex system is determined by the meaning or functionality of its constituent parts and the rules by which they are combined. In other words, the properties of a whole can be understood and predicted based on the properties of its components and their interactions. This concept is widely applicable across different fields, from linguistics and philosophy to computer science and mathematics. In linguistics, for example, the principle of compositionality states that the meaning of a complex expression is a function of the meaning of its parts and the way they are syntactically combined. This allows us to understand and create an infinite number of meaningful sentences using just a finite set of words and grammatical rules. All right? So from a finite set of things, we can get an infinity of possibilities that emerges. In the context of the examples that I provided earlier, let's see how compositionality can be applied. So as mentioned earlier, health is a composite of various factors such as nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress management, and more. Each of these components contributes to the overall state of health, and the interactions between them can have a synergistic or antagonistic effect. By understanding the role of each component and how they interact, we can develop a more comprehensive approach to health optimization. Success in any domain is often the result of multiple factors working together. For instance, in a business context, success may depend on factors such as product quality, marketing strategy, customer service, financial management, and leadership. Each of these components plays a crucial role, and the way they are combined and executed determines the overall success of the business. Wealth building is another example where compositionality comes into play. Wealth creation is a function of various factors such as income, savings, investment, risk management, financial literacy, and more. By understanding how these components interact and contribute to wealth accumulation, individuals can make informed decisions and develop effective financial strategies. So that was kind of boring, but here we go. As a mental model, compositionality encourages us to break down complex systems or outcomes into their constituent parts, understanding the properties and interactions of these parts, and then analyze how they can combine to produce the overall result. This approach can help us to identify the key components that drive a particular outcome, assess their relative importance, and develop targeted interventions or optimizations. Moreover, compositionality highlights the importance of understanding the relationships and interactions between different components. In many cases, the whole is not just the sum of its parts, but rather a product of their complex interactions. By considering these interactions, we can gain a more nuanced understanding of how systems work and how to influence them effectively. So it says, compositionality is a powerful mental model that can be applied across various domains to understand, analyze complex systems and outcomes. So then it says, by breaking down these systems into their constituent parts, understanding the properties and interactions, and considering how they combine to produce the overall result, we can develop more effective strategies, make more informed decisions, and solve complex problems. And so that, to me, is a very valuable thing, right? When our bias, we can sort of understand why we bias towards thinking about just one thing. But if we can shift that from a bias towards to sort of understanding this concept of compositionality and how it's typically a confluence of factors that leads to something, as opposed to just being one singular thing, it helps us to see things in a new light. It gives us a richness that we would otherwise not be able to have. And it can sometimes free us from dogmatism and naivete, so to speak. But it also, as we can see with health and different things, it changes your possibility space. It changes the direction and the space in front of you, and it explodes possibility space, right? It by understanding compositionality and being able to apply it to different things, it increases the richness and diversity of your understanding and experiences that you can possibly have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, damn, I Claude sort of nailed it in a lot of ways. I don't know what else to say, guy. I don't know how else to elaborate other than to say, yep, I agree with that. That's a pretty good summary, guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to sort of hit back, like, tie it all up or whatever. So we do have, as humans, we do have a bias, and it's a hard bias to get rid of, to think that, certain complex things or certain things that happen in the world are just the result of one thing. But if we can have a mental model reminding ourselves that it's very rarely, if ever, just one thing. It's typically many different things coming together that cause something to happen or whatever. And so being aware of compositionality, the power of compositionality, and how pervasive it is in the world and the universe, can help us to transcend getting stuck in that very one-dimensional frame, and realizing that there's a higher dimensional space out there, that there are many things simultaneously happening, all over or everywhere all at once, so to speak. I think it enhances the richness of your experience. And I also think it allows you to see things in what I would like to say is for me anyway, has definitely been a more useful light, right? By sort of understanding that a concept of compositionality and how, getting a singular, like improving one's health isn't just about doing one thing. It's about doing many different things simultaneously, or not necessarily simultaneously, many different things over time, and composing those things together in certain ways. That's how you achieve those kinds of things, as opposed to just doing the one thing. It's added a richness to my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you. I got you. Composition.
Yeah. So let's finish off with, what is something that you like to compose? Have a think about that for a sec.
Something that I would like to compose?
Well, what's some things you do like to compose? Like if you look at your life and sort of go, okay, like I do these different things over time. What are some cool things that I've enjoyed composing? Or, like I gave the example of a recipe is a set of instructions for how to compose a dish or a meal. Like you mentioned with your editing, you compose, video out of many different media, right? So you've got audio, visual, SVGs, whatever, stills, etc., and you compose all of that together to create an end product. What are some other things that you like to compose? Or now that you think about it in this way, are you aware that you compose certain things that you didn't really know you did before?
Yeah, I think so. I think because I try and take on as much as I possibly can during the day, and I like to be like super busy every day. So because of that, I have to be very conscious of how I'm allocating my time. So to optimize my time, I will be doing a few, sometimes simultaneous things, but my concentration is on one thing. So I'll give you an example. If I'm editing the podcast, for example, right, I will run the audio through this AI thing that Adobe has, where it like cleans up the audio. It puts a couple effects on it, and there's a bit of time that it takes for it to do that, because like I have to do it on my audio and on your audio as well. So I'll put like both of them in there, and while that's happening, I'll start like editing parts of the pod that I can while I'm waiting for the AI to do its thing with the audio. So it's just like one small example, but I find myself always looking of how I can do simultaneous tasks to optimize my time throughout the day, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm sort of composing my day in a way, right?
We all do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're consciously doing it, but we all do. That's the beautiful thing. Like our lives are a composition of many different things. I think that's like one of the biggest things that I wanted to sort of get across in this pod was like, it's never just about doing one thing, because like none of us just do one thing. Like our lives are a composition of so many different things over time. At any one moment, we can only be, in a sense, doing one thing, but over time we can be doing many different things, and it's how all of those things come together that sort of define, or are the realization of what your life is or was.
Yeah, or if I'll also do this as well. For example, if I'm walking to the gym, I have some phone calls to make. I'll be making those phone calls on the way to the gym. Or if I'm going to fill a property from my other job, then in the car, that's when I'm answering emails or text messages or calling people, right? So I'm never just sitting doing nothing. I'm always trying to find ways of how can I do a task while I'm also doing something else. So I find like I'm always trying to constantly do that. But like you said, everyone is doing that at some level, right?
Yeah. And some people more conscious about it, some people less conscious about it. But yeah, we all are doing it. And what makes us as humans is the multi-computation of all of these different particles coming together to create the one body, right? Or all of these different processes combining together or getting entangled with each other that end up creating our one body and our one, consciousness that gives us our single thread. But even that single thread is made up of trillions and trillions and trillions, if not way more than that, processes that are happening, and I just think it gives a richness. Like you can start to see things in such a rich way, and it's sort of really what I think the beauty of sort of getting that concept of compositionality is to understand that like anything that appears as being one thing is actually made up of many different other things. So like I think I've said this before, but like no thing is just one thing, right? It's composed of many other things. And I think it's just cool as fuck. But go forth and compose, people. If anyone's still listening towards the end here, go forth and compose. Compose beautiful shit. Like, it's not always about having the best hand or having the best things. Some people can make beautiful dishes out of basic, boring ingredients. How they compose them together is what makes the beautiful end product, so to speak. So, you don't need the best hands to compose the best stuff. You don't need the best ingredients to compose the best recipes, so to speak. You can have all the best ingredients and compose it together in a shit way, and you'll end up with a shitty dish, right? You can have the best cheese in the world, and you can have cheese goes with so many things. I shouldn't have picked cheese. You can have the best jam in the world ever. And you can have the best sardines ever. And if you put them together in most ways, that's going to be shit, right? I don't know if that was a good example. But because you can take things.
You never know.
Yeah, I know. That's how you compose it together could make it delicious, right? Typically, apricot and chicken don't go together. But if you compose it together in the right way, you can make apricot chicken and it's delicious, right? So, what you have currently, if you're not getting the things you want, maybe look at how you're composing those things together. And then if you address that, then maybe looking at changing some of those constituent parts or do it all at once. Shit, I just fucked that up. That was a bad one. That was a bad example. But composition, incredibly important. Okay, here it is. You can cut that last bit out and I'm just going to go with this example. You can have the best string quartet. You can have the best brass players in the world. You can have the best percussionists in the world. But if you don't compose them together well, or in a certain way, it'll still sound like shit, right? Individually, they could be the best at what they did, but they didn't even do it. So how you compose things also matters as well as what you're starting with. Be mindful of that. Go forth and compose things. Like practice your compositions across many different spaces, not just in health space, but in workspace, in life space, in fun space, in your relationship space. Play around with this idea of composition. Do you have anything you want to finish with?
A dope-ass composition is the Pirates of the Caribbean theme song. Do you remember it?
No.
I can't do it, but I don't know. I started thinking about it, and like that is such a badass composition. Yeah, the Pirates of the Caribbean song. Yeah. You should check it out after the pod, guy. It's fucking dope.
Okay, I just that helped me to think of something, a very key thing that I should have mentioned earlier that I haven't yet. But a key thing with all of these things is understanding this concept of compositionality, but then also understanding that some things are necessary but not sufficient. Right? So let's just use the example for health to wrap this up. So it's necessary to have good nutrition, right? But it's not sufficient. Okay? You can't just have good nutrition and expect to be healthy. It's necessary to have good sleep over time for health, but but it's not just sufficient. Like, you can't just have good sleep and expect to be healthy, right? If you're getting really good sleep, but you're shitty on your nutrition, it's not going to work. So understanding that concept of necessary but not sufficient, and when you are composing, get all the necessary parts together, and then it's the composition, right? The bringing them all together over time that results in the things that we in those meta concepts, that health, right? So bringing together the health, nutrition, sleep, hydration, breath work, exercise, movement, all of those things, bringing all of that together, composing those things together is how you create the symphony that is health, or the harmony that is health, right? That allows you to persist over time and increase your degrees of freedom. That's how I would wrap this up. But yes, thank you very much. Anything else you want to finish with?
Yeah. No, that's it, guy. That's it.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for staying tuned. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, subscribe. If you hate it, also like, comment, and subscribe. Have fun. Polska, have a lovely night. Peace out, everybody. And love, Guy.
Love you, bro. Peace.
Peace.
Yeah, later.